We've come to number 7 in our little journey. We're on the road. We're holding meetings. And I want to say how much I have appreciated a wife who is willing to be on the road constantly, living out of a motorhome, abandoning a home with its security and its comfort, and being willing to go on the road for now 30 years, traveling most of the year. And I've also appreciated the fact that my son Matthew and his wife Delise have joined us and been willing to be part of this journey that we are undertaking. This has been a very fulfilling ministry for us, and I would have to say that given the love I had for the classroom and the desire I had to be a teacher for the rest of my life, this has been the most satisfying, most productive period of my life, to be holding meetings like we hold on the road and travel around the country and be united as a family. This has been a very, very powerful force in our lives for 30 years now, and I hope we can continue until Jesus comes. We're on the road. We're holding meetings. We have seminars. We are trying to get the message out as broadly and as quickly as we can. During this period of time, 2 or 3 times, it was decided by various individuals that we needed to try. We needed to try to come together. We seem to be going farther and farther apart on the various gospels that are competing for our attention in the Adventist Church. And we need to try to see if we can come together. One meeting was held at Andrews University, in which several scholars from the university, from the seminary, and a number of independent ministry leaders came together, spent several days together on topics that had been mutually agreed upon, and on the very issues that Desmond Ford had brought up in the years previous: the nature of sin, the nature of Christ, justification, victory over sin, and yes, perfection. And so we came together, we studied together, and we met in a group of not more than 15 people, trying to see if there could be harmony and be unity. And you know, we almost came to some agreement, particularly on the nature of sin and what sin is. Is sin a birthright, or is it a choice? Is sin an inheritance by which we will continue to sin for as long as we live, or is it a daily decision in which we make individual choices based on our knowledge of what is right and wrong? And so we really wrestled with these issues, and we came to almost unanimous agreement that it is a choice. It is a decision. It is not just a state of being in which we are stuck for all of our lives. And then we slept on that. And I remember the next morning we came back, and one of the individuals from the seminary who had come very close to agreement on this said, "I simply can't go along with it. Sin is not just a choice, it is also something that we are born in." And we were back to square one. And when we go back to square one on these issues, we can never get beyond square one. We cannot really discuss harmony on the nature of Christ. We cannot discuss harmony on justification or on perfection of character. All of these areas hinge on whether or not sin is a choice or is a state of birth into which we are locked for the rest of our lives. So when that attempt failed, it pretty much was impossible to come to any kind of unanimous agreement, even among the few of us that had met together, to try to see if we could get some harmony rather than controversy on these issues. So that was tried during that period of time. Other attempts have been made to get people of different views together to try to make sense of what was dividing us. None of those have worked out in any significant way. the divisions continue to grow and deepen, and we continue to wonder why Adventists remain fragmented in these areas. So time continues on. We come to the year 2000 and the years that have come now past that time. And something unique has transpired in this period of time. When Desmond Ford left the Adventist Church in terms of having his membership there, when he was no longer allowed to be a primary speaker at our camp meetings and in our schools, and he went back to Australia and retired, most of us had hoped that these issues would disappear. And they really did kind of go underground for a while. There was not much discussion of these issues for a while until the late 1990s. That's about 15, 16 years after he had left Pacific Union College. But in the late 1990s, in the Adventist Review, again, articles began to appear on the nature of justification, for instance. Is making righteous a biblical doctrine, or is it a Catholic doctrine? And it was said in several places and in different times that if you believe that making righteous is part of justification by faith, you are following the Catholic view of understanding salvation, that it is righteousness by works at that point. And so the articles began to resurface and become a little stronger. And what really was happening was something like this. The evangelicals had come to us in the mid-1950s. They had asked us if we wanted to be part of the mainline Christian understanding, or if we would be considered a cult. We altered some of our beliefs, such as the nature of Christ and the nature of the atonement. And therefore we were accepted as valid Christian members of the mainline body of Christianity. Then that again kind of disappeared for a while. And then along came Desmond Ford, only watering, as I said, watering the seed that was planted in the mid-1950s, bringing it to real logical fruition, showing where this would take us as a people, and continuing from that point. And then when he lost his ability to speak in the Adventist churches, we thought again that this might be the end of the controversy in its most virulent way. But now through the pages of the Adventist Review and some other journals, we were beginning to hear these things all over again. And now it became more and more dominant that this was the ongoing issue, because it had not been dealt with carefully and thoroughly in 1981 at the Glacier View Conference in Colorado. Now it was coming back from underground and coming to the surface again, so that now we were beginning to see these same issues and these same problems arise again, and we were having difficulty knowing how to deal with them. So now here we come down the years again. In our meetings in churches around the country, more enthusiasm, more desire for these things. I often wondered in the early years, would we be able to continue this ministry in any serious way once we had given our first presentations? Would this continue? And I can say that now we are receiving more invitations for these meetings than ever before in my lifetime. Now there are more people wanting to be put on a waiting list so that they can have this seminar in their churches. And so we are. I'm just amazed at that. I have more meetings than I can possibly meet, and even requests from around the world that I cannot meet. And so the interest in this area is growing. It is not diminishing. And again, the opposition is growing. And so we'll bring it up to our time. Here we are. This is being filmed in the year 2019, at the beginning of the year, and something really important happened in the last year, 2018. For the first time in my lifetime, 4 books, 4, published at one time, have come off our presses. 3 written from Andrews University, one written in the Pacific Union Conference, all on one issue. The last generation theology is wrong. So what's last generation theology? That is a name that's just been coined in recent years. When M.L. Andreasen was writing about these things, he was just talking about the final generation and what it was like to live in the time of the time of trouble and the close of probation and receiving the seal of God and living through the close of probation and beyond through the plagues. We didn't have any particular name for it. It was just that this was what Adventism was heading for. This is what Adventism's message was all about. Within the last few years, the name Last Generation Theology was coined, and it has sort of become an acronym now, LGT, Last Generation Theology. And all of these books have one theme: Last Generation Theology is wrong. It is fanaticism. Don't get trapped in last generation theology. And in almost all of them, the name M.L. Andreasen figures very prominently. Now, M.L. Andreasen was an individual that came into prominence very early in the Adventist Church. He was very active in being an author and a writer of very deep theological books. The Sanctuary Service, one of his best, the book of Hebrews and others. And so this was during the period of the 1930s and the 1940s, in which it can probably be accurately said that he was the most influential theologian on these subjects in Adventism. When the 1950s came, he examined these discussions that were being held at the General Conference level with evangelicals. And he became very concerned that we were selling out our principles, selling out our truths for the sake of recognition by bodies that were really part of Babylon. And so he began to write on that subject. And therefore he was greatly opposed and being singled out again as the scapegoat, the one who caused the problems rather than the one who was responding to the problems that had already been caused. And so M.L. Andreasen has been the one most attacked in these last 4 books. He is the one that has brought all the discord, all the disunity, all the problems into our time right now. And he is the one that we must abandon if we are to have any hope of achieving solid unity in the Adventist Church. Well, that's what these books are all about. These books are saying that to believe that we are not born sinners, to believe that justification is being made righteous, to believe that perfection of character is possible by any group of Christians in the end of time, that is fanaticism and must be opposed. That's what these books are all about. And they have come into extreme prominence right now, all at one time in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that's where we'll end this little segment. And our last segment will be, well, where do we go from here? What now in the Seventh-day Adventist Church?